Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the stack of source material you've given us and really try to synthesize the most critical nuggets of knowledge.
Glad to be here.
And today we are taking a plunge into one of the most protected secrets of the modern era, unidentified submerged objects, USOs.
Right. And this isn't just about lights in the sky anymore.
Not at all.
The material we're covering is, well, it's pretty remarkable. It draws from an analysis of 672 separate USO cases.
672.
Yeah. And they span nearly 3 centuries, from 1717 right up to the present day. When you look at that kind of scale, you
Right.
start to realize this is a vast, global, and, a highly persistent mystery.
And the terminology itself is constantly shifting, which I think tells its own story about the phenomenon.
It really does.
We all remember the classic term UFO, right? Unidentified flying object. It was introduced in the 1950s by the military to sound a bit more technical than just flying saucers.
But that label, it was almost immediately recognized as problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, are they truly unidentified if they're consistently reported showing the same capabilities?
Good point.
And do they even fly in the way we understand it, given the propulsion systems they seem to have?
Exactly. So the attempt to fix this led to that shift in 2020 to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Which was meant to reduce stigma and also to expand the scope beyond just objects.
But then it changed again.
And this is the most telling change. It came just 2 years later, December 2022, when the Pentagon updated it again to unidentified anomalous phenomena.
From aerial to anomalous.
That shift was essential. They needed a catch-all term that could officially encompass these deep-sea mysteries, the USOs, that operate just as comfortably below the surface as they do above.
Which brings us to our mission today, the source material on USOs. Let's start with the technology. The sheer contrast between what these things can do and our own best efforts. We're really talking about a physics gap, aren't we?
It's more than a gap. It's a devastating capability gap. You look at our current subtechnology, our most advanced nuclear submarines, and they are generally constrained to sustain high speeds of around 40 knots.
40 knots.
And that's pushing it. That's an engineering and physics limit. You're dealing with heat, friction, the need to maintain structural integrity.
So what are the objects we're tracking doing?
USOs have been repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, tracked traveling below the surface at speeds in the hundreds of knots.
Hundreds.
They just defy our entire understanding of how a high-speed object should interact with water.
That just sounds physically impossible. I mean, when a conventional submarine tries to push past 50 or 60 knots, you run into cavitation, right?
Right. The formation of vapor bubbles that drastically increase drag and noise. It basically tears the water apart around the sub.
So how do USOs handle that?
That's the core anomaly. The sources suggest they interact with the medium in ways we just can't replicate. Maybe by creating some kind of localized field or a supercavitation bubble to travel inside of.
Completely negating the drag.
Exactly. It negates the hydrodynamic drag that limits our best naval vessels. It is science we simply do not possess.
And it gets even more remarkable when you factor in transmedium travel.
Without a doubt. The analysis of these hundreds of cases shows that transmedium travel, that seamless, immediate transition between water and air, was reported in a stunning 68% of all USO encounters.
So they don't slow down to surface.
No, they just pass from one density to the next without any effort at all.
And the military is the primary witness to this. It's hard to imagine something more disruptive to naval operations than a fleet of objects that can zip past your submarine at impossible speeds.
And then immediately fly into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
Military encounters make up about 22% of all the cases studied, and they're dominated overwhelmingly by reports from the U.S. and the Russian or former Soviet Union navies.
The implication is pretty obvious.
It is. These are technologies and craft far beyond our capabilities, operated by some unacknowledged group.
And to really drive home that threat perception, the sources cite a very specific and highly classified incident. This was during the Nixon administration.
That's right. It involved a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier.
The pinnacle of power projection.
Absolutely. The report states that an unknown object once disabled the entire communications system of that carrier.
The entire system.
Everything, including its fighter aircraft communications, for a full 20 minutes. A nuclear carrier is, by definition, a command and control center.
Right.
If something can render your most powerful asset blind and silent for that long, that represents a profound national security threat.
If the military knows something capable of this has been operating under the waves, it must have fundamentally changed their whole approach.
It had to.
So let's connect this threat to human history. The source material suggests the surge in USO activity correlates almost perfectly with humanity's growing reach into the deep.
Exactly. For most of history, the deep ocean was, completely off limits. Scientific oceanography as we know it only really began with the HMS Challenger expedition in the late 19th century,
And then came World War II.
which created an explosive need for deep-sea technology.
Right, you saw these massive, rapid advancements in sonar, radar, and then eventually nuclear propulsion.
And the Cold War just doubled down on all of it. You get nuclear-powered subs like the USS Nautilus in 1954, and the construction of the crucial sound surveillance system SOSUS,
The underwater microphone array.
built to detect Russian subs. And the timing here is critical. The vast bulk of recorded USO activity lines up directly with humanity successfully probing the seas, equipping ourselves with better eyes and ears underwater.
So as we got louder and probed deeper.
We began consistently detecting them.
And it wasn't just military noise, was it? It was commercial crowding, too.
The oceans became a global traffic jam. Global maritime trade increased by a factor of more than 50 between 1900 and the 2020s.
50 times.
We went from 200 million tons annually to over 11 billion tons. So if there is an intelligence residing in or using the deep ocean, we have very aggressively moved into their backyard.
And that shift in human behavior seems to be mirrored by a shift in the attitude of the USOs themselves, at least according to the case analysis.
The analysis breaks down their observed behavior into 3 distinct eras. You have the early era, pre-World War II.
Okay.
Back then, the sightings suggest a cautious, very distant, almost hands-off reconnaissance approach, like they were just monitoring humanity's technological and social path.
Then the 1940s arrive and the stakes change dramatically.
With global mechanized warfare and, critically, the use of the atom bomb, the USO's attitude seems to shift from detached observation to heightened scrutiny.
More active.
Yes, a probing, more active engagement. It suggests they were concerned about humanity's new destructive capacity.
And by the Cold War, when the world was truly living under the shadow of mutually assured destruction, what did their behavior look like?
It became demonstrative, highly provocative. The objects started performing these dramatic displays of speed, agility, and power right in front of military assets.
So they weren't hiding anymore.
It suggests an active intent, perhaps a deliberate effort to awaken humanity to their presence, almost as a warning or a subtle intervention.
Trying to keep our species from wiping itself out.
Possibly.
So they dialed up the visibility when we got most dangerous. And yet, for all that drama, we still barely know the extent of their domain.
It's humbling, really. As of 2025, only 25% of the ocean floor and a mere 5% of the entire ocean volume have been significantly explored.
Wow.
We've been discussing objects moving at hundreds of knots in an environment that is, for the most part, completely unknown to us.
So let's look at the data patterns from those 672 cases. This is not a localized phenomenon, is it?
Not at all. USOs are operating globally, completely unconstrained by territorial waters or political boundaries.
But there are hotspots.
Oh, definitely hotspots. The source material points to high activity in the central Atlantic, the Atlantic coast of South America, specifically around Brazil and Argentina, the Black Sea, and the North Pacific near Asia.
And when witnesses describe them, what are the most common forms these objects take?
Discs or ovals are the most reported shape. That's about 22% of all cases.
Okay.
Spheres or orbs are nearly as common, as are reports where the object is just described as a brilliant light, moving incredibly fast.
And what else?
Cigars or cylinders account for about 9% of sightings.
Now, the sources didn't just collect anecdotes, they applied a metric to determine reliability. Can you walk us through that strength of evidence system?
Sure. The system rates cases from weak up to solid or strong. It's based on 5 factors, things like the quality of the source, corroboration, and the proximity of the sighting.
And what did that analysis show?
The significance isn't just in the categories themselves, but in the results.
Oh.
The military reports, especially those from U.S. and Soviet Navy's agencies that are notoriously cautious and skeptical, they average a solid score.
Which tells us?
It tells us that even within the most bureaucratic and cautious reporting frameworks, observers are confirming the reality of these anomalous high-speed phenomena.
Right, so these aren't just blurry photos. These are radar contacts and multiple military witnesses, often in stressful situations.
Exactly.
Let's bring this data to life with 3 genuinely extraordinary encounters detailed in the source material. Let's start with an almost mythic sighting from the Age of Sail. 1813.
This one is chilling because of its scale and the reaction of the witnesses. In 1813, near Nova Scotia, the crew of the American ship Niagara spotted a moving large hump in the water.
A lot.
They closed in and estimated its dimensions, 200 feet long and 30 feet wide. And it was covered with what they described as a shell.
200 feet long. That's truly colossal. That's larger than a Boeing 747.
Yeah.
It completely dwarfs the largest known marine life.
It was comparable to the largest 100-gun warships of that Napoleonic era. The source notes the crew initially planned to get a closer look, but they were deterred by the object's dreadful appearance. These are professional sailors, accustomed to the brutal nature of the sea, and yet they were intimidated into retreat.
It suggests an enormous object of, well, of terrifying or ancient origin.
It does.
Okay, now let's skip way ahead to 1963, near the Puerto Rico Trench. This story of the ocean surface rising, it sounds unbelievable.
It really is the pinnacle of dramatic USO activity. A commercial Boeing 707 jetliner crew, flying high above the Atlantic at 31,000 feet, saw this underwater disturbance.
And what did they see?
They watched as the surface of the ocean began to rise up in a great mound, described as a big cauliflower.
A quarter-mile high. How could witnesses flying at 31,000 feet possibly estimate that scale accurately?
They estimated the mound was at least a quarter-mile high, so over 1,300 feet, by comparing it to known atmospheric features and the curvature of the sea. But here's the anomaly.
Okay.
The region is seismically active, but the mound just subsided. It went down without causing a massive tidal wave or any reported seismic activity.
Which suggests...
It strongly suggests a highly controlled, contained action. Something executed by an immense and powerful object operating below the surface, regulating the pressure dynamics.
That is profound. Okay, the final case. This raises the stakes on what happens if one of these anomalous objects gets damaged. We're moving to 1962, Operation Dominic.
A high-altitude nuclear test.
Right.
During the tests near Johnston Atoll, a cigar-shaped UFO was observed, and it appeared to crash following the detonation. The Navy immediately launched a recovery attempt.
And what did the recovery team find?
Well, a Navy diver, whose account was later revealed after he was sworn to secrecy, described the retrieved debris. He said it was an enormous sponge-like structure with organic-looking compartments.
Organic-looking.
Yeah, non-metallic, non-standard, perhaps even biomechanical.
And the most incredible part of that retrieval attempt?
The operation was shut down for the day. When the salvage team returned the next morning, the entire object had vanished completely. Gone. Which points to self-repair or maybe remote recovery capabilities that far exceed anything we can imagine. It also hints at the deep, decades-long involvement of the Navy in crash retrieval.
Rumors that have been around for a long time.
Right. Rumors that even early nuclear subs, like the USS Nautilus, had specialized cargo holds just for potential recovery missions.
The secrecy around this is clearly multi-generational. Okay, let's synthesize the key takeaways. This deep dive confirms that a tangible, highly advanced technology is operating globally in our waters.
And the world's navies have known this since at least World War II.
That seems to be the ultimate conclusion.
It is. These transmedium objects are real, they are incredibly fast, and they seem to be immune to our current detection and engagement methods.
And the secrecy surrounding this isn't just a simple matter of a government keeping a secret from its people. The source material suggests a far more complex structure.
It's an intricate mechanism designed for compartmentalization. The management of this classified knowledge, and potentially any recovered technology, has reportedly shifted over time.
Shifted how?
It's moved out of official government oversight and into the domain of private corporations and highly protected black budget programs.
If that's the case, why such extreme classification protected by all these layers of private infrastructure?
Well, national security is the surface reason, but the deeper insight from the sources involves the profound economic risk.
Economic risk?
Think about it. If the advanced propulsion systems used by these craft systems that negate friction, create localized gravity fields, or maybe harness zero-point energy, if that was released, it would fundamentally destabilize the entire global energy sector.
The trillions of dollars reliant on fossil fuels.
They would vanish overnight. It would create global economic chaos. So the secret is protected as much for economic stability as it is for national defense.
That puts an entirely new lens on the classification. They're not just guarding a military secret, they're guarding the global marketplace.
They're managing the slow release of reality.
Which brings us back to the motivation of the USOs themselves. We noted the observations shifted to scrutiny, then to demonstrative display, as humanity became more technologically dangerous.
The analysis suggests the encounters increased simply because humanity became more interesting to them. Our leaps into nuclear power, our deep-sea probing, our capacity for truly global, destructive conflict.
Yeah.
It all drew their attention.
So we'll leave you with this final thought based on the material we reviewed today. If the non-human intelligence operating in our oceans started paying closer attention when we developed the atom bomb and began probing the deep, what happens now?
Very good question.
As humanity rapidly approaches strong artificial intelligence and we accelerate our technological progress below the surface, the question isn't whether we'll find them, but rather, are we the specimens being studied? And what will that final, momentous conversation be like when we realize they might not be worried about our nuclear power, but perhaps the nature of our evolving intelligence?